To start, I'm a woman asking this question. I've been scrolling through various posts, and I've noticed that in most discussions related to relationships and dating, the majority of comments lean towards the idea that men should take the initiative. For example, men are often expected to plan the date, reach out first, except on Bumble, send the first text after matching on a dating site, and text first after a first date to book the next one. He is a stranger and in the exact same position as you are. Why put so much weight of expectation on him? My question is, why is it only their responsibility? Why have we set these expectations for men alone? A relationship involves two people, so why put all the burden on one? Someone even commented that it's against their feminine energy to reach out. Excuse me, but shouldn't we match overall energy first? And what about in a homosexual relationship? How do you decide who takes the man's role there? So, can someone help me understand this why? And to the men here, how do you feel about this? Would you like to be approached by a woman? Do you find it attractive or too masculine? Story 1. I think you might enjoy the book Self-Made Man by Nora Vincent, who successfully passed herself off as a man to work her way into male-saturated social circles and get a taste of male life. When she tried dating women disguised as a man, she was almost immediately disheartened and demoralized by the staggering amount of rejection and dismissal involved, much of which happens before the first word is even exchanged. After the first time, she went back to her wingman who was in on the ruse, and he simply laughed and said, "Welcome to my world." Story 2. This is more of a question to ask women than men. Men know why. It's because we know it's very rare for women to take that initiative, so we have to do it. Otherwise, nothing will ever happen. It's easier to sit and wait for women, so they have little reason to change their dating strategy. I hear some rationales from women where they do mental gymnastics to convince themselves that men somehow dislike it when women show interest, like playing hard to get or that feminine energy you mentioned, and it's a way to insulate women from rejection more than anything. If you never put yourself out there, you'll never be rejected, and if men will throw themselves at you, then you never have to worry about it. Story 3. It is not that we should take the initiative. It is that we have to if we want to date at all. It is out of necessity. I think it is unfortunate, but it is just the way it is. Story 4. Courtship used to be handled pretty much entirely by the man. The women who experienced this way of life, the baby boomer generation, raised their daughters to expect the same thing, and they raised their daughters to expect the same thing, and so on. That's really all it comes down to. Plus, women know that men want sex and eventually, the guys will come to them so they don't have to risk rejection. But over the last decade or so, with the prevalence of pornography, more and more guys are just staying home, playing video games, and engaging with pornography. This is why there has been a rather large increase in women complaining that men are no longer putting in the effort. The reality is, men are still willing to put in the effort, but they are not getting anything in return for that effort anymore. The effort is expected, not appreciated. So many have stopped. Story 5. Life would be much easier if more women were willing to take the initiative. However, it's not like it never happens. We'll probably get better answers in an Ask Women subreddit though. Haha. Story 6. Would you like to be approached by a woman? Why yes, most men on the planet would. In fact, you hear us say it over and over. We express that we want it to happen endlessly. So really, you should be an Ask Women to understand why this is, because it is most certainly on the women and not the men to explain what women do or don't do. He is a stranger and in the exact same position as you are. Why are you putting so much weight of expectation on him? Again, Ask Women. If you really want to know your answers, you are in the wrong sub. Story 7. Historically, it is because men have the ability to produce basically infinite offspring with infinite women, but women can only create a finite amount of offspring. So women are naturally the gatekeepers to and more valuable in sex who have to pick a good mate, so they have to be wooed, so initiative is on men. Why is it still like this in the most balanced societal circumstances we've ever lived in? Because women don't take initiative. It's uncomfortable and scary and could lead to rejection. And while men are still doing it, why start? Would I like to be approached? Absolutely. Would guys generally like it? This question is asked so often here, and an overwhelming majority of guys would welcome that to happen. Story 8. Feminism has failed to normalize the alternative, which leads to men being forced into gender roles and ironically perpetuates the thing they fight against. I would love to be approached, but I would die alone waiting for that to happen. So, story 9. They changed Bumble so that now women don't have to message first because it wasn't working. Most women wouldn't send a message or just say something like, "Hi." Story 10. Well, reality tends to indicate that women are capable of flirting, and that's a decision. Why don't they usually ask first? Because they don't have to, and most people don't enjoy initiating. Story 11. As an introvert and extremely fearful of being labeled as a creep or worse, after the Me Too movement and related incidents, I do not take initiative at all, and so I have been dateless for 7 years now. Story 12. Even on Bumble, men have to make the first move. They recently changed it because a lot of women were just sending a first hi with nothing else and then waited for a message. My theory is that women fear embarrassment more than men supposedly do, but that's only a theory, and so they don't want to feel embarrassed by a potential rejection. Story 13. I think confidence is more attractive to women than it is to men. Not that men aren't ever attracted to confident women, but I think generally this holds true. So, women hold men to that standard because they find confident men attractive and enjoy being pursued. As for dating apps, attractive women typically get so much attention that they rarely need to reach out to men. Story 14. Go ask this question to women. Women have taken the passive role in dating because it's devoid of any accountability and puts all the pressure on the man, not her. This is the one aspect of the patriarchy that women love, and no amount of wealth or prestige will ever make women want to face this aspect of being a man. It's much easier to blame the man for everything when he planned it, and that's what it boils down to. Women do not want the responsibility or to be in a situation where they're completely accountable for the situation, and there's nobody to blame but themselves. Can't be done. Story 15. I once asked a girl how it's fair that guys have to do all the planning and setting up of the date and pay for it, etc. She said girls have to do a lot too. They have to dress up nicely, do their hair, and take a risk to go out with this guy. When she said all that, I was thinking if she showed up in sweatpants and a t-shirt, I wouldn't care unless they were obviously dirty. That's all stuff I don't care about. Anyway, as to why men have to do all that, because we have to. If we don't, we stay single forever. Look at me. I'm an anxious mess of a 30-year-old person who has only managed to ask out 3 girls face to face. And as a result, I've been single my entire life. If I want to find a partner, I have to be the one to make it happen. If there was a girl version of me who is nerdy, quiet, and anxious, she would have had guys ask her out in college, in class, on dating apps. She'd have enough chances to get comfortable dating. What's the incentive for her to do anything? By the way, something about your post made me feel like crying. I'm just not built for this modern dating landscape. Maybe I could find a wife when I talk to her dad about how many cows it would cost for his daughter's hand, or if my parents arranged one. But today, I just don't stand a chance. Story 16. Sexism. Often from the same people who claim to fight against it. If a woman approaches, I find it a turn-on. It's a sign she knows what she wants. That's a good thing for anyone, regardless of gender. Story 17. I can't even get the guess where I'm taking you to dinner get a response from my wife, for fuck's sake. She knows it drives me fucking mental that she won't decide on anything, yet here we are 25 years later. Story 18. I'm a gay man who's been with my partner for 11 years. Almost every woman I know who is single has asked me why I can keep a man but they can't. And I always give the same answer. I just wanted a man who loved me like I love him. You want a man to give you everything without making any effort on your part. This instantly gets those women offended, and they start talking about things that mean nothing for actual relationships. Modern women are just looking for materialistic things, and men have become wise to the fact that who they are has become less valuable than what they have or don't have. Story 19. If guys didn't take the initiative, we would cease to exist as a species. Women are keepers of the gates. Generally, the ones who enter the gates must first approach the gate. I would love for women to not necessarily be more approaching, but definitely more receptive, or even better at signaling that they would be receptive to male interest. I live for the chase. Beyond that, if a girl put together the second or third date, that would be amazing. I would love that. I feel that a lot of girls do not participate in relationships until they are serious. Story 20. This isn't just dating, though. Trying to chat with girls online, it's pretty much the same every time. If I don't message them first all the time, I can expect to never hear from them. Even then, sometimes I still don't hear a reply unless I message again and again. Worse yet, I have to come up with conversation topics most of the time. Recently, I finally told the girl I like, after waiting a month for her to message me first for a change, and while I was waiting for her to ask me how I was, after I had last asked her how she was doing, that I didn't like how I always had to message people first and how I missed how we used to chat more, like 6 months ago. I told her I was going through a tough time and all that, and how her close friends were lucky they got to hear from her often, because she has told me before how she would talk with them regularly. I came back a week later only to see she basically told me, trauma bombing isn't going to make people want to talk to you, and how she was just being brutally honest, and that a conversation just keeps flowing. I guess that means I should have kept trying to talk to her when it was clear she wasn't putting in much effort. It really sucked because I was hoping she would have offered some compassion or tried to help me feel better instead of just making excuses. I know in the past she told me how she didn't like to message people first usually, and I tried to ask her why, but the answer was something like she didn't want to bother anyone if they didn't want to talk to her. The thing is, if everyone did that, then no one would ever talk to anyone else. I have heard so many excuses from girls online about why they don't message first or how I hardly ever hear from them. Some are just lies because some just don't want to put in any effort and want all the work put on the other person. It really sucks because it makes a guy feel neglected and unwanted when they always have to message a girl first all the time. At least 10 years or so ago, it wasn't like this from what I remember. I used to have several female friends from around the world who would message me first at times. But it seems like something happened that changed that, and I'm not sure what. Maybe too much smartphone usage, or the fact girls can get plenty of attention just having a profile saying female, so why put in any work if guys will always give you attention? I don't know. Story 21. So, can someone help me understand why this is? Women are generally more motivated by fear than men are. As such, when it comes to the fear of rejection, men are forced to deal with it because women don't have to in the same way. As to why I would advise guys to take initiative even if it doesn't make sense on a social scale, that's because it works. If you wait for a woman to ask you out, you'll die lonely before it happens. Story 22. It is the natural norm. It does not represent all cases, just most of them. Men are forced to make the first move because women want a man that takes the lead in things. It is a perfectly reasonable dating strategy. This does not mean women cannot make the first move, that is fine too. My wife ultimately asked me out while she knew I was seeing other girls, and that actually made her stand out among the others. She has since made it abundantly clear that she likes and prefers that I take the lead in everything for us as a couple. The takeaway is women want men that can lead a family, even if it is just you and her, and proving you can do that from the start is attractive. Story 23. One of the historical sexism issues used to be that men earned wages while women received allowances. Men overall have had much more agency in their lives. Try using Bumble as a man. So many women just send a hi and expect the other side to start the conversation for real. I love it when a lady shows some initiative. Story 24. Modern women have a self-defeating ideology. They see men as evildoers and potential harm at any given moment but expect men to initiate conversations. You cannot see the opposite sex as evil and choose barriers over them while at the same time desiring a relationship. You cannot expect them to come to your aid but tell them that they are the personification of toxic masculinity. When a fairly large pool of men say taking accountability is a criterion item, I think women as a whole have made a mistake somewhere along the way. Story 25. Because most women want equality only when it benefits them, and traditional roles only when it benefits them. In Tinder, men often get roasted and rejected when our first message isn't sufficiently engaging and interesting. Lots of women's profiles even say something like, think of something more interesting than hi, or I'm going to ignore you. But on Bumble, where women have to send the first message, every single match I've gotten, their first message has been hi. Story 26. I think that men are conditioned these days to not approach women. A savage, humiliating rejection is one of the lesser things that could happen. Worse is being called out for being creepy and put on blast on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube. You could lose your livelihood over stuff like that. Story 27. I have wondered that also. Back when I was on the market, I would give a girl my number and say, use it or don't, no pressure, because I didn't want to play the game of having to be the first one to do everything. It's a nice change when the woman says, let's go out to this place at this time, wear these types of clothes, shave, and bring dollar bills. It should definitely be normalized. If you like something, go for it. Story 28. Most happily married couples I meet came about from the woman making the first move. I bet there's a lower divorce rate in couples who met by the woman making the effort to take the initiative. More evident of a mutual relationship, in my opinion. Story 29. I'm a guy, so probably not the best to ask, but my theory is, 1, it's the social norm, and it is difficult for society to go against established norms, and 2, women don't really need to. Men in general are more desperate for relationships than women. As such, they tend to go out of their way to fulfill that desire, and women just need to wait for one of them to approach. Story 30. My question is, why is it only their responsibility? Why have we set these expectations for men alone? A relationship involves 2 people, so why put all the burden on one? Someone even commented that it's against their feminine energy to reach out. Excuse me, but shouldn't we match overall energy first? And what about in a homosexual relationship? How do you decide who takes the man's role there? So, can someone help me understand this why? And to the men here, how do you feel about this? Would you like to be approached by a woman? Do you find it attractive or too masculine? This is a society issue. There is not one answer here that is going to encompass everything. It's the system that's been settled on, and I look forward to its gradual change.